Burundian Senate is said to be making a final touch on what will be one of the greatest files of our history, the trial of the colonization of Burundi. 84 years after the German colonizers left, 58 years after the Belgians departed, and Burundi got its independence, they should be accountable before history and pay a compensation for all the harms caused to the country and its population. The Burundian Senate does echo the speeches of our politicians who constantly charge the colonialists in order to find scapegoats who will bear responsibility for all the ills Burundi has been going through. They stressed that yesterday, the colonizers divided us by identifying us ethnically as Hutu and Tutsi, enslaving us, taking our resources, our archives, and our cultural objects. Even today, they will still be dividing us, inciting violence, financing, supporting internal and external political position, rebel groups, coup plotters, etc. The misery in which the country languishes will also be their fault. No one would want to be the devil's advocate by making the cases for the sailors, who certainly harmed in one way or another, but it will be too easy to make them endorse full responsibility for all our ills. The political crisis that led to the cyclical inter-ethnic violence, with all the mourning Burundi underwent as a result, equally leading to subsequent waves of refugees, serious human rights violations, such as assassinations, murders, rapes, torture, kidnappings, and arbitrary detentions, electoral irregularities, poor economic and political governance, which plunged the country into a chronic economic slump, impunity, and others. Are all these attributable to the colonizers alone? Do we not have our own share? Are we not primarily responsible for our own fate? Did the colonialists create our ethnicities, or are we still the same people made of ethnicities who once lived together, but who have turned against each other since their departure? The country is poorer today than it was half a century ago. Do we not always have the same country, even if part of it was cut off by the settlers, with such a hard-working people, experts and researchers to exploit and create wealth from its abounding resources? Wasn't our independence intended to empower us to establish institutions adapted to a governance system that will be specific to our identity and drive our transformation while negotiating good relationship with partner states in the best of our interests? After 58 years of independence, it is time to dare taking responsibility for our serious shortcomings. Let us acknowledge our failures and take the path of responsibility and change. If the country needs the whole truth about the history of its colonization to be established and the wrongs done to it repaired, it must also be reminded to the people and those they elected to take in hand their destiny and no longer look continually for scapegoats and easy excuses to avoid accountability. The Mouvement des Femmes et Filles pour la Paix et la Sécurité au Burundi would finally like to join its voice to that of the entire Burundi population to remind the newly invested members of parliament and the government of their noble mission to represent and serve the people, leading them to the realization of all the good promises of peace, security, respect for human rights, good governance, prosperity, and good relationships with other nations to which we aspire and are legitimately entitled. Burundians should remain vigilant so as not to be deceived and thus focus on the wrong targets. We are and will always be individually and collectively before history the beneficiaries or the victim of our own choices. Let us be careful, make sure and demand that those who take decisions on our behalf do so in the best interest of the country. This is a message from Mouvement des Femmes et Filles pour la Paix et la Sécurité au Burundi.